What if I told you that this city has a dish so specific, so local, so deeply embedded in its identity that the name is trademarked, and that every other restaurant in Rochester that serves the same thing has to call it something else? That the dish was named by college students who stumbled in late at night and asked for a plate with all the garbage on it, and that the family that owned the restaurant fought the name for years before deciding it wasn't going away? Rochester, New York, the Flower City, the Lilac City. In 1918, a Greek immigrant named Alexander Tahu opened a restaurant on West Main Street in Rochester called West Main Texas Hots. The building's wood paneling dates to 1851. The ceiling still hides old chandeliers from the railroad days. On the menu was a dish that included hot dogs, cold baked beans, and home fries, a plate of everything the kitchen could put together, designed to stick to your ribs and cost almost nothing. Alexander's son Nick took over and renamed the restaurant Nick Tahu Hots. The dish evolved. Hamburger patties joined the hot dogs, macaroni salad joined the home fries, and the whole thing was topped with mustard, raw onions, and the restaurant's signature hot meat sauce, a spiced ground beef sauce somewhere between chili and meat sauce that soaks into everything below it. In the mid-1980s, the restaurant became a destination for University of Rochester students. Late nights, after everything else was closed, the college crowd poured in. They didn't know what to call the dish. One night, a group of students asked Nick Tahu for a plate with all the garbage on it. Nick didn't like the name. His family didn't like the name. The name wasn't going away. In 1992, Nick Tahu trademarked garbage plate. The legal consequence was immediate and specific. Every other restaurant in Rochester that served the same dish, and there were dozens of them, had to call it something else. The variations multiplied. The trash plate, the junkyard dog plate, the pond plate, the compost plate, the great plate, the sloppy plate, the Rochester plate. None of them can legally use the word garbage. The garbage plate is considered a great late-night snack, and the restaurant is packed with diners from around midnight to 4 a.m. It has been named the fattiest food in New York State. A fraternity at the University of Rochester holds an annual charity event built around it. The website of Nick Tahu Hots is garbageplate.com. Alexander Tahoe opened a restaurant in 1918 and put everything on a plate. College students named it something his family hated. He trademarked the name he hated because it wasn't going away. Every American city has a hot dog. Rochester has two. The Red Hot is the standard, a beef and pork frankfurter, the kind you find everywhere. But the White Hot is Rochester's own, and it exists nowhere else with any seriousness. A White Hot is made from uncured pork, veal, and sometimes beef. No artificial coloring, no nitrates, no smoking. The absence of curing and smoking is what makes it white rather than red. The casing has a snap when you bite it. The flavor is cleaner and more delicate than a standard hot dog. The veal lightens the pork, and the absence of smoke lets the spice blend speak directly. Zweigle's, founded in Rochester in 1880 by two German immigrant brothers, is the producer most identified with the White Hot. The Zweigle family has been making sausages in Rochester for over 140 years. Their White Hots are the standard at Nick Tahu Hots. The original garbage plate uses Zweigle's. They are sold at every Rochester grocery store, at every Rochester ballpark, at every Rochester tailgate. Outside of Rochester and a narrow band of upstate New York, White Hots are essentially unavailable. People who grow up in Rochester and move away report this as a specific and significant food loss. The White Hot does not travel. It belongs to Rochester the way the Sonoran hot dog belongs to Tucson, a regional variation so specific to its place that it cannot be properly replicated anywhere else. This is the dish that confuses everyone who encounters it for the first time. It is called chicken French. It is not French. It was not invented in France. It was invented by Italian immigrants in Rochester, New York, and it is a Rochester-specific preparation that appears on virtually no menus outside the city. Chicken French is boneless chicken breast, dipped in egg and flour, pan-fried in butter and olive oil until golden, and finished in a sauce of white wine, lemon juice, and butter. A light, bright, intensely lemony sauce that the chicken absorbs as it finishes cooking. It is served over pasta or with a vegetable side. The dish is simultaneously simple and precise. The sauce breaks if the heat is wrong. The chicken toughens if the flour coating is too thick. The Italian-American community of Rochester developed chicken French in the mid-20th century, adapting the French technique of cooking chicken in butter and white wine to the ingredients and preferences of the Italian kitchen. More lemon, more brightness, olive oil alongside the butter. The French in the name refers to the technique of Frenching, the egg and flour coating method, not to the country. Every Italian-American restaurant in Rochester has chicken French on the menu. Many have had it for decades. It is the dish that Rochester people order when they come home. The dish that transplants describe when explaining Rochester food to people who have never been there. In 1902, a man named Arthur Abbott began making frozen custard in Rochester. The formula he developed, egg yolk enriched, higher fat, denser, and creamier than standard ice cream, became the foundation of a Rochester institution that has been operating for over 120 years. Abbott's frozen custard stands are seasonal. They open in spring and close in fall because frozen custard is a warm weather food and Rochester's winters are not warm weather. The stands appear at the waterfront at Ontario Beach Park, in the suburbs, along the routes that Rochester families have been driving for generations specifically to get Abbott's. The flavor selection rotates. The chocolate and vanilla are always there. The seasonal flavors, peach, raspberry, strawberry, are made with local fruit when available. The consistency is the thing. Abbott's custard is denser and slower melting than soft serve, with a richness that standard ice cream does not have because standard ice cream does not use the same proportion of egg yolk. People from Rochester are evangelical about Abbott's, in the specific way that people from Milwaukee are evangelical about Leon's or Gill's or Kopp's. The custard is the same category of product. In addition to the white hot, Zweigle's produces a product so specific to Rochester that its very existence requires explanation to anyone who did not grow up there. The Zweigle's Pop Open, sometimes called the Pops, is a hot dog with a natural casing that has been scored with a series of cuts along its length before packaging. When you cook it, on a grill, in a pan, on the flat top, the cuts cause the sausage to split and curl outward dramatically, the scored sections opening like petals as the heat causes the casing to contract. The result is a hot dog that looks like a propeller, or a flower, or a creature from a different culinary dimension. The Pop Open is a Rochester cookout staple. Children who grow up in Rochester consider the spectacle of a Pop Open hitting the grill, the dramatic curl, the sizzle, the char on the split edges, a fundamental summer memory. The split sections develop more char than a standard hot dog, which means more Maillard reaction, which means more flavor, which means the Pop Open tastes better than a regular hot dog in addition to looking like nothing else on the grill. Zweigle's does not sell Pop Opens nationally. They are available at Rochester grocery stores and at Wegmans locations in upstate New York. Every summer, Rochester natives who have moved away find ways to procure them. Wegmans is not a food. It is a grocery store. But in Rochester, where it was founded in 1916 by John and Walter Wegman, it is treated with the specific reverence that other cities reserve for restaurants and food landmarks. The Wegman family opened a small fruit and vegetable stand in Rochester in 1916. It grew into a supermarket, then a regional chain, then one of the most beloved grocery retailers in America. Wegmans has been named the best supermarket in the United States multiple times by Consumer Reports. Its prepared food section, the sushi, the hot bar, the bakery, the cheese counter, is used by Rochester residents as a restaurant as much as a grocery store. When Wegmans opens a new location outside its traditional upstate New York footprint, it is treated as a civic event. Lines form before opening. Local newspapers cover it. People who grew up with Wegmans and moved away will drive considerable distances to reach one. The specific combination of quality, variety, and price that Wegmans maintains is so unusual for an American grocery chain that food writers have spent decades trying to explain it. Wegmans is still privately owned by the Wegman family. Corporate headquarters is still in Rochester. The store that John Wegman opened in 1916 grew into a company that employs over 50,000 people. The Loganberry is a drink. It is made from a hybrid berry, a cross between a raspberry and a blackberry, developed in the 1880s by a California horticulturalist named James Harvey Logan. The berry is tart and intensely flavored. It makes a juice unlike any other berry juice in the world. In Rochester, the Loganberry became a soda fountain staple in the early 20th century, when the city's numerous ice cream parlors and lunch counters served it as a fountain drink, Loganberry syrup mixed with carbonated water. The drink spread through Rochester's food culture and became a local standard that visitors encountered and could not identify. Loganberry drinks are sold at Rochester sports events, at summer festivals, in the Rochester public market. The flavor is simultaneously familiar and specific, fruity, slightly tart, unmistakably itself. People who grow up in Rochester consider it a standard option alongside cola and lemon lime. People who encounter it for the first time cannot place the flavor. Loganberry juice is available nationally in limited distribution. The Loganberry as a Rochester fountain drink tradition is a Rochester thing. The garbage plate is not the garbage plate without the hot sauce. This distinction requires clarification because the hot sauce of Rochester is not what the rest of America calls hot sauce. Rochester hot sauce, the meat sauce that tops every garbage plate and every hot dog plate and every combination of starch and protein served at Nick Tahu Hots and its many competitors, is a spiced ground beef sauce. It is thick, slightly sweet, seasoned with a combination of spices that is specific to each restaurant and protected as a trade secret. It has some heat, but is not primarily a heat sauce. It is primarily a meat sauce with warmth. The meat sauce soaks into the home fries below it. It absorbs into the macaroni salad. It runs across the plate and mingles with the mustard and onions. The combination of everything on a garbage plate, the starch, the protein, the cold macaroni salad, the mustard, the raw onion, the meat sauce, produces a flavor that is incoherent in description and entirely coherent on the palate. Every Rochester hot dog stand has its own meat sauce recipe. The differences are debated with the intensity that Milwaukee debates fish fry rankings or New Haven debates pizza. Rochester's Catholic population, large, predominantly Italian and Eastern European, established a Friday fish fry tradition that has been running since the mid-20th century. Every Friday, at fire halls, at VFW posts, at church basements, and at the local bars and restaurants that have been serving it for decades, Rochester eats fried fish. The Rochester fish fry is beer-battered haddock, specifically haddock, not cod, not whiting, served with coleslaw, macaroni salad, and either French fries or potato salad. It is the same format as the Milwaukee fish fry, the same Catholic obligation that became a civic ritual, the same argument about which location serves the definitive version. In Rochester, the fish fry is tied to the Lenten tradition more explicitly than in some other cities. The lines are longest during Lent, but runs year-round at the establishments that have made it a permanent fixture. The fish fry is the Rochester meal that crosses class lines, that feeds the factory worker and the accountant at the same table, that has been doing so since before anyone now eating it was born.